Okay. So we have, what did they call it in baseball where you have a couple members on the injured reserve list, Ellen and Izzy. So we hope you're back with the team shortly. And well, and Sue's going to watch this, and there'll be a quiz for those who ask me to send you the link. I think that's only fair. Especially on this story, because there's so many concrete answers. Sarcastic. I'm being sarcastic. All right. Let's take a look at what Mr. By the way, if you spell his name wrong, he spells his name Jonathon, not Jonathan. Oh. But Jonathan Keats was, the famous poet from England. Right. But this is Jonathon Keats. And
son is Jonathan, but it's with Jonathan.
Right. So is my son. Anyway, here, this is what he looks like. He's 52. I don't know if, he's a good looking man. And he is not just a writer, but he's also an artist. And he has, when you Google him, you get all these different things that he does. And I will read a little bit about his, okay. He's got a very long wiki site, which I don't know if he did, but he was born in 1971. He's an American conceptual artist. That's not, full transparency. That is not it's not my strong suit and he's an experimental philosopher known for creating large-scale thought experiments. Keats was born in New York City, of course, and studied philosophy at Amherst. He now lives in San Francisco in Italy. All of that is. Oh. He's got a brand. He had his early work as art projects. He's most famous for attempting to genetically engineer God in a laboratory. He did so in order to determine scientifically where to place God as a species on the phylogenetic tree. In interviews with journalists, he indicated that his initial results showed a close taxonomic relationship to cyanobacteria, but cautioned that his pilot study, he had to write this himself, which relied on continuous in vitro evolution, was not definitive. He also had a show at the Judah Magnus Museum. That's Jewish in Berkeley. And he had his writing career. He's a critic for the San Francisco magazine and a reviewer for the New York Observer. However, Keats has assured interviewers that the writer and artist are the same person, telling Salon that his fables, like his art, are a form of thought experiment. Don't really know what that means, but he seems a little bit out there. Now, this story is from a book called, let me just bring it up.
Book of the Unknown.
The Book of the Unknown, Tales of the 36. So the title of that book is very meaningful because 36, Lamed Vav, first of all, it's double chai, but there's supposed to be 36 righteous, I'm sure they said men, but righteous people in the world, and you don't know who they are. And so you should treat everyone like they're one of the Lamed Vavniks. So someone told me this, a congregant who was, I'll just say like a high maintenance congregant. And he says to me, he goes, you never know. I could be, a Lamed Vavnik. And I was thinking, so first of all, I always think about that when I see him. But, when I get frustrated with people, I say, well, they could be one of the 36. I have to have my patience. Could be one of the 36. Anyway, so tell me, what do you think about the title of the story? Any thoughts about that? And then tell me, who you liked or who you didn't like. Lynn.
I thought the title was totally ironic. I thought the story was a slam on organized religion.
Oh my God.
I thought that this woman that spoke to me because I think she was a living, breathing example of Judaism without all of its trappings. And then scripturally, she did, lived, breathed through example what we all should be doing, and that is to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. And I felt that she was the epitome of that. And it's interesting that the rabbi couldn't recite his scriptures and felt guilty about that. So the ritual of Judaism, to me in here, and I felt very close to this passage of, and it wasn't said directly, but I feel when I'm in services, my most meaningful moments are when I do private meditation, and I am speaking alone to whoever it is I'm speaking, and that the prayer book is not getting in my way, which I think a lot of people don't feel that way. They need the guidance of the prayer book. So to me, the story rang true in the fact that we have lost, when she talked to the people, they had lost faith, they had lost hope. They sort of settled back in their complacency. And I think modern Jews have done that. They've settled back in their complacency, and the doing is somehow missing, though it's being resurrected, I think, now. But that's how I felt about the story.
Okay, thank you. Alice, then Evie, then Merle.
Yeah, Lynn, I agreed with a lot of what you said, but I mean, everybody comes from their own, viewpoint or their own experience. I didn't see it as slamming organized religion necessarily, but I saw it as very spiritual. And there was one line where they intimated the Messiah was like every day of your life, every day that the sun comes up, and that, these are things that you have to appreciate. In addition to Zayin, I thought her father was very, I wrote this down. I just thought it was so beautiful. On the bottom of page 410, he says, he's talking to his daughter, and Menashe says, you're the tricks of a charlatan, you're certain, she says. And he says, as certain as you will be shortly, when in spite of your magical intervention, the sickness finally kills me. Find love, Zayin, make a family. Life is the only miracle, and it's brief. To me, that was the essence of the story. And the other thing I want to say about it is, sometimes when stories try to teach you a lesson, it seems heavy-handed. But for me, this didn't seem heavy-handed, because I thought the story had a lot of humor, and there were some just funny. I read the story twice because I had read it a long time ago, and then I reread it last night, and there was just some really funny things. So I thought, in a very light, in almost humorous way, he gave us a lot of lessons of life. So that's what I really liked it.
Thank you, Evie. I'm gonna.
Okay. Yeah, what I was just going to say, I think that Alice just clarified for me, because I found it spiritual, but I couldn't find the bottom line. Something wasn't tying it together. But I just want to say, Vanessa, that I really had trouble understanding the story. But after you gave the introduction about him, all of a sudden it became not so cloudy, because that was more confusing to me. But she reminded me very much of a Jewish Mother Teresa.
Oh,
And I had forgotten about the spiritual part about her father, which is what I appreciate Alice underscoring. So I did not love the story, but I wanted to love it because I like the spiritual stuff, but I just couldn't get it tied together somehow.
Yeah. Sandy.
I like this story. I have to read parts of it again. I just, from the very first page though, I was confused about her name. Now, is that
I was
you
waiting to
know,
bring that up, Sandy, but
And
go
I
ahead.
we're the only one besides me that caught that?
Yes. So Zion in Hebrew is penis.
That's the slang. It's also.
It's what?
Penis.
And it's.
And I talked to two other Hebrew. I asked Simcha, and I asked my girlfriend, and she goes, well, maybe they meant Sion, Tzion, which is Zion, which is Israel. No, it was spelled Zayin. Now, I don't know, this Jonathan Keats must know that because I said something. Even my husband, who hasn't used his Hebrew in 40 years, he's like, oh. And when I first saw it, I thought, Sandy, didn't you?
I right away thought of it because I laugh all the time. People use the word Zion and they mean Sion. Zion, Zionism is Sion, Sionut.
Right.
And Zion alone, when you don't use it as the tzaddik sound, it means penis. And only those of us who know Hebrew know.
Right.
that.
Right. And so he does say Zayin the Profane. So maybe that is a hint. Oh, Merle, go ahead. Wait. Okay, I unmuted you.
I looked up the meaning of Messiah just to start with, and the Messiah is anointed by someone.
Yes.
She was never anointed. It's just the people kind of chose her as their
Right.
savior.
I don't. Right.
And
I don't
thought-
think she said she was the Messiah.
Now she said they chose her as the Messiah, but
Mhm.
maybe that's why it was profane, because she wasn't formally anointed by God or anyone to be. And also, I was thinking about something the rabbi said at Torah study on Saturday about there's a whole area of psychology called positive psychology.
Oh.
And her father finally explained to her how to heal people through positive psychology, because none of these medicines were real. It was all placebos and powdered sugar. But
Right. When they went up to the apothecary, so maybe they'll have St. John's wort. There are, herbs that help heal, but when he said it was sugar, I was like, "Ay, this guy is really."
So, I mean, for me, the whole story was explaining what is a Messiah, what is a modern day Messiah. And she certainly was one for the people until at the end she meets another person, a peddler, who says, I am the Messiah. So she passed the buck at that point. Yeah.
I do want to step back for a half minute about the plague. I think that all of us, having lived through COVID, and I remember I had just stopped treatment for cancer a year before, and I went to go see my oncologist, and I said, he said, you're not going to be able to move freely about until there's a vaccine. I said, how long is that going to be? He goes, 2 or 3 years. And this is right at the beginning. And I said, my daughter was going to have a baby. I said, can I fly out there? He goes, you can drive. I said, can I fly out there? You can drive. I remember when that settled on us, the depression of not being able to see people, not being able to gather, ratcheting up Zoom and getting people to learn how to use Zoom. That helplessness I saw mirrored in those people who had the plague. Evie.
I know that he is almost anti-religious, but isn't one of the premises of the ultra-Orthodox being anti-Zionist is because not until the Mashiach comes, something.
Yes, I mean, some of them say that there won't be an Israel until the Messiah is here. Although I think many of them have learned they realize how good the state is to them and gives them tax money, and they don't have to go in the army. They don't have to do anything. So, yeah. Abby, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, Beverly, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Good morning. I like the story a lot. And I usually, when there is I'll just say like the Salem witch trials, where people get infected with something negative. And I just saw a movie like that called Dream Scenario, which had a very big effect on me. And it
Okay.
was the same kind of thing but here the group is doing the opposite thing. The group is what she gives them is hope. But the author also slams the femininity in many places in the story. And on page 408, her father says, Zion's little shtick had cured the land of hypochondria, patron ailment of his trade. That's what he did, by drugging people silly with hope. And hope isn't silly. It's a wonderful thing and it can be very curative. And so I really liked the story because it felt hopeful that you could almost cure yourself, cure people around you with positive thoughts, etc. So I liked it very much. Now, why it's called The Profane, I'm not sure. I think it's like a contradiction of what's happening, because she's not doing anything profane.
Right.
And yet he calls her profane. So I think it had a lot to do with her being a woman.
You might be right. I have Mary, Judith, and Lynn. Mary, real loud.
Okay, so the name Zayin means it's the seventh letter.
Yes, of the Hebrew alphabet.
And it means, okay, so it looks like an X. The letter looks like an X.
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
it's a thing like this and then down, okay?
Yeah.
And also one of the letters, I believe there's a crown over.
It can be.
And that's,
Yeah.
and that's related to Messiah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so it looks like an X, or if you squint, they say similar armament, which
Yeah.
explains the meaning of his name in Hebrew in the Bible. Zayin means weapon. It can also mean penis.
Yeah.
Because men are protectors
Oh,
as opposed to women. And if you
interesting.
think how they describe her with her almost like a nightgown. I mean,
Right.
you think about seeing through it. I mean, it's just she doesn't have it's a put down almost.
Absolutely, because it's a masculine name. I mean, no one in Israel would ever name their kid that, because it'd be like naming your kid penis. But it's masculine.
Right. And I read actually in the Jerusalem Times, they had a whole article about the whole how it evolved into the word penis, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
And that they would write about this because it's but anyway, and the profane is that, you know what, penis is pretty profane. Let's get it.
Yeah.
But protector is not. So that's that contradiction
Yeah.
that he wrote about.
Yeah.
It's right in the title.
Right. I mean, I thought the profane was assuming you're the Messiah.
That's what I
Right.
Well, I
You
think,
know,
I think
everybody would say, "Oh, I'm the Messiah."
but right, but if in the end, the person it is a man, but yeah.
Yeah.
But it is, yes, it is absolutely, there are little layers. there,
Yeah.
But anyway. So, yeah.
Okay, on page 410,
Real loud.
on page 410, she's arguing with her father who's dying. And he says, I'm an apothecary, I know these things. And she says, I'm the Messiah. Things are as I say. I think that's the profane.
Oh, interesting. Yes.
That was my catch
Yeah.
on the profane. But I didn't like this story because I don't think this man writes well for women. I do not think there was a feminine anything about her or anything that anyone recognized in her being feminine. And so I didn't like it.
At the beginning of the book, I thought her daddy was her favorite and she went to go kiss him. I thought it sounded like incest and it made me uncomfortable. And then that wasn't it. So I was like, okay, we're moving away from that. Susan and then Janice.
Okay, as I told you before, Vanessa, I felt like I was reading a fairy tale.
Yeah.
And she is the fairy godmother. And she's the one who can do all the things that you're wishing somebody could do. I mean, the whole thing just seemed to me to be out there somewhere. And it just reminded me of Once Upon a Time.
Yes. Yes. Right. Which also subscribes to his, that everything with women is, not real and not to be taken seriously. And yeah,
Right.
and I agree, what Judy said that, yeah. Lynn, then Janice.
On page 405, I found a lot of meaning here to support what I was saying. I used the word slam organized religion. Maybe that was too harsh, but I really feel that this was, I agree with Sue. I thought this was almost a parable story instead of a real short story. But on page 405, it's her conversation with the rabbi, the old rabbi, that convinced me of what the author was trying to get at. I again say that the title is ironic because profane is opposite of sacred, and what she is doing is quite sacred. She is giving of herself and going throughout the land, motivating people to move, to gather their senses, to live life, as her father said.
Right.
But
To be hopeful, to be happy.
To be hopeful, to be happy, to have faith in yourself. But take a look at 405 when she faces the old rabbi. For the first time, Zayin faced the great man unseparated by the distance of ritual. The ordained space between altar, which is rabbi, and balcony, people.
Women.
Okay. Up close, he appeared more ancient than the patriarchs. Had she not seen him leading the town in worship just a few weeks before, she had believed that he had been dug from the ground like an antediluvian fossil. That's where there is definite humor in the story. His skin was the cast of dust, his flesh as cold as clay. She clasped his hands anyway, and kneeling over him, laid her head on his chest. Her words came unprepared, not from scriptures. In her mouth, the language softened, melting into song she couldn't comprehend. The sick man began to hum. Zayin lifted her head. Her lips were no longer moving. It was always this way when her work was done. Her song was being sung by him. So the song becomes internal. Ritual is innate. Spirituality is innate. It's not prescribed. That was my feeling. The rabbi opened an eye and regarded her. How do you know these words, child of Menashe? I don't know them, Rabbi. They just come to me. You don't know them. They aren't known to me either, but when you chant them, they must be sacred. They come to me when I heal someone. Folks live when they accept my words as their own. And this is what I was trying to communicate, how I feel in services. You speak this way to a rabbi? I suppose that you have the right, but please answer me this. Why does the Savior come here in the body of a girl? With all due respect, Rabbi, I don't think I'm the Savior. I'm just good at letting people get better. You are the Messiah. It's important for him to bring this back into organized the organized religious part of us. This is how you test us. You come without priestly lineage or learning, and in the flesh of a flawed sex. I've ordered you dead for sacrilege. You choose to revive me. What is your reason, Zayin? Won't you please tell me? So here is the ultimate test of Jews. How do you express your Judaism? Do you do it? Do you have to be reading from scriptures? Do you have to
Have the lineage.
have lineage? Do you have to be a male? Or can you do what she did and express her spirituality through good works and deeds, which I think is the essence of Judaism.
Yeah.
When I first read it without digging deep, I thought of maybe he's a Christian scientist that believes when you, as a healer, you could just heal yourself by speech and by believing. And or maybe that's what he thinks, that medicine is, I thought it was more of a medical than religious, that medical isn't going to heal you, that it's he's saying that you have to heal yourself. And that's what I thought initially reading the whole thing. There was on medicine and the uselessness of it. And I really thought he was a Christian Scientist when I read it.
Right. I mean, I wish we knew more about his background, because the whole thing, that part that Lynn read us, and she was mumbling and praying to herself. If you know Bible, Hannah was childless, and she went to God and prayed for a son. And when she was praying for the first time, she was praying out loud. And that's one of the reasons they say we pray out loud today. But I just don't know what his background is. Like, is it medical? Does he know that about Hannah in the Bible? He's got to know what Zayin meant. He has to. I just find that, and he, to write that book, 36 ways, he has to know something. So I'd love to know a little bit more about his background. And the one thing about Wikipedia, and that's where I, look these guys up, I could look other places, I guess, is that, anyone can edit it. So that means he could have done it himself. And because there's no, I go straight to the early life, personal life, like to see how many times he's been married, and none of that is on there. And maybe he doesn't want any of that on there. And I find that revealing as well. Evie, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Just a couple of random thoughts. Yeah, all of a sudden I had the flashback just before you said that about Hannah and the mumbling, without relating it to the story immediately. But the other thing is, and I can't remember who it was, and I think several people have said, one of them was our beloved Ron Miller, who passed away a number of years ago from Common Ground. But just recently, I think on Bill Maher the other night, David Mamet was his guest.
Another prophet of the day.
The two things that I was thinking about were, what do you do in terms of not belief, but more,
We can't hear you when you mute.
Oh, those Medicare Advantage calls, today should be the last day.
I know.
In terms of what do you do as a Jew as opposed to belief or everything else. So that idea of action that was kind of in the story a little bit.
Tell us more. I lost the train.
I think I just did too.
Okay.
Action as opposed to belief.
Oh, ritual as opposed to belief.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, when we pray, I believe it has to be keva, which means how to pray. Like, everyone knows the Shema. And you don't need to look at it in the prayer book. You can just say it. And then kavanah is the intention.
But I think of, Vanessa, I think of ritual in terms of ritual, you're acting, you're doing something, whether it's lighting a candle, and the ritual kind of motivates you into other further action, as opposed to a passive kind of religion, like, oh, I'm lighting the candles because it's Shabbat. Whereas to me, it's the idea, okay, I'm lighting the candles because it's Shabbat, which means, and kind of bringing me back into the present moment as opposed to way back.
Agreed. Lynn.
On the top of 409, and Evie, I think this speaks to you as well. The rabbi, the old rabbi, said instead of playing prophet, he wrote a letter to Zayin, wherever in the world she was, to come home before her father, the one who had raised her, was dead and gone. He copied his missive 10 times and sent it to 10 other rabbis. He requested that each do the same. Then he returned to Menashe and waited while his words radiated across the continent. Look at that movement. Look at that deed. Look at his action. I think action was the heart of the story. I don't think it was just a little. It was get off your bums and do something about your life, instead of waiting for things to happen to you. Stop being victim and become actor in your own life. And to me, that was the heart of the story.
And I'm not sure, it is a parable, a fable. And obviously they couldn't, call or text and say, Zion, come back. I mean, it does say, he put out his missives, but when you think about that time and you think about today, while we were sitting here, an alert came up that Kevin McCarthy is retiring. I mean, everything happens like instantly. Well, I'll have to go look that up afterwards.
Yeah.
But
So don't worry.
Judy said he'll be in jail. Olivai. It was a different time then. And I think about that. And I've been reading a lot of books. This weekend, Wayna de Randall, who wrote Night Angels, will be with us at 10 a.m. And it's based on the true story of Dr. Ho Feng Shan, who was a Chinese diplomat in Vienna who got a lot of Jews out. Not unlike Schindler, Raoul Wallenberg. I'm not sure what you don't know about him, but obviously she's getting the word out. But when you think, I'm just going to mute her. When you think about everything now is instant. And going back to congregants, people call me or email me, like, you didn't get back to me. Just got it, you can't expect me. You emailed me at midnight and it's 9 o'clock. Come on. Yes.
Vanessa, you were one person I know is always gonna get back within
I know.
24 hours, maybe even an hour.
I do.
I think Rick emailed you today. I said, she gotten back and she'll be back before nightfall. I mean, you know that.
So,
So don't feel bad.
I don't, but Rabbi always says, he said, all these conveniences, they're supposed to make our lives easier, they make it harder. Even I think with doctors, why didn't they get back to me? Why didn't they read my scan? Everything is instant gratification. Oh, that's another, I can't even go there. I just, that whole thing is right.
Yeah, right.
Right. Right. We just had a long story about that. Lynn, go ahead.
As you're talking, I am thinking about modern day religion, and this story, and medicine, and doctors, and all of that. I think what people are mourning is the personal relationship that they had with their doctors, with their rabbis, with whomever. And what the people are responding to in this story is her one-on-one caring about them. And I feel that way in medicine now. I just don't think the doctor, and not that she doesn't care, but the constraints of medicine now, just the way it's financially structured. In olden days, people had very personal relationships with their rabbis. I somehow think that is what this author is
Lamenting.
Yeah, I think that's what
Yeah.
I think this whole story is satirical. I mean, it's just a point, it's just really criticizing, indicting the idea that reading being in temple and reading scriptures is going to move you to action. You know, it's I don't know. That was just my thought as you were
All right.
talking.
Thank you. I have Alice, Judy, Janice,
Yeah.
Sandy, Merle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I apologize if I'm saying something that somebody else said because I was disconnected at one point, but another thing that popped into my head is that it's that we shouldn't be looking to, well, maybe it's religion or whatever, to some expert or something to solve all our problems. Because on page 406, it says they were looking for a girl with golden braids and a gossamer slip. They were looking for a girl whose feet didn't touch the earth. I mean, these people were looking for somebody to solve their problems, but really what she said and what her father said is, live your life. Be good to other people. Have a family that you love, and that if to look more inside of yourself than to look for an answer from as Lynn said and other people said, you don't have to necessarily, and I'm not putting down rabbis or clergy or anything, but there is something that you have to look inside of yourself to really find answers.
Agreed. Okay. Judy, then Janice.
I would like to believe that, but because it's so negative about women,
Yeah.
I can't, it doesn't follow. If you disrespect women and then you tell them to go out and live a good life,
Yeah.
you don't understand women. There are two things that I think this author should do. I think he should go back and look at his story because I don't think he anticipated COVID. And so,
Interesting.
So I think we come at this with a different perspective
Absolutely.
than what he wrote it as. But Me Too time is here,
Yes.
and this man ain't there.
Yeah.
And I just finished Barbara Streisand's book.
Was it great?
I'm so glad it's over.
Oh,
Thousand.
1,000 pages later.
Oh my God.
It's the most fabulous book I've ever read. And the reason is her Judaism is my Judaism.
Yeah.
Her rejection by people is what I expect in business when you're trying to make it and you're a woman. I will tell you, I'm in her morality and her generosity. And so I read this story coming from having just read that. And I think we are all victims of knowing that when we read something, it might affect something else. But I was appalled at the disrespect of women.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Janice.
I want to go back to the title because first of all, I have a daughter. Her middle name is Zion.
But Tion, TZ.
Right. So I looked at that one. If maybe he was getting it like Zayin the Profane, like he knew the difference.
You can't not. I mean,
Okay.
it's Sion and Zion. Unless he's really ignorant.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Right. It come right up. Right. Judy, Sandy.
I just, from something you said about rabbis and doctors, I think we're very lucky. We're really lucky at Macomb because I think both of our rabbis really want to know us. And I never feel like they're talking to me as just, you're there. I think, I don't know, they really both give me a great feeling, and especially Rabbi Sarada. Now, on the other hand, I have a lot of doctors. I can't believe years ago you went to one doctor, if you were aging, but I go to so many doctors and they're all doing the same thing. They're sitting there typing they're asking you a question and they're typing into their computer. And that's all because of lawsuits and legality and protecting themselves and protecting the hospital.
I
And
mean, we can look on the hopeful side. I too have many doctors that when they type it in, that the other doctor will read it. Now, I'm not saying that happens, but that I think we can only hope that happens.
But if they don't look you in the eye when you're talking and when they're talking to you, it's very difficult. It's a different kind of medicine these days.
Yeah.
I greatly respect these doctors. I think I'm very lucky to have them, but they're all doing that. And there's a sadness when I leave there. I always feel like I was sitting with a stenographer or something.
Listen, when I take my 90-year-old mother to the doctor and he looks at me and not at her, she goes bananas. So now I look down so they don't look at me. And I'm like,
Smart.
yeah. Anyway, Merle.
Okay, well, now people who can afford it can get a concierge doctor. And that
Yes.
will be more devoted to you. But I thought this story was about the desperation in society for people looking for help, whether it's a doctor, spiritual leader. They'll choose anybody. A little girl will do this for them. She will be their doctor. And toward the end, you knew that this person who said he was a peddler, or if he was a spiritual being, a peddler who is now a Messiah, he'll take over for her too, because at some point she faints and it appears she's dying and she can't last forever. But I think the story was about a desperation in society right now where you cannot find this leadership that you need, whether it's
Exactly.
or a spiritual leader. And I thought he did that very successfully.
Yeah.
We have been talking about the, I can't think of the word, but about the epidemic of loneliness.
Mhm.
Loneliness. Okay. I have Joyce, Elaine, then Lynn. Joyce.
When Zayin would go and see people, I think she spoke almost 2 languages. She spoke from her heart and really listened to people and gave them hope. But then she also spoke spiritually and in a language she said she didn't know, that the spiritual language came to her and she didn't know from where, and she wasn't aware of it. That's point number 1. Number 2, which I just forgot. Oh my God, I can't remember. Oh, why was the story?
Very impressed that you remembered it.
Yeah, I'm surprised it came so quickly. Why was this called Zayin the Profane, not Zayin the Profound?
Oh, very good choice.
Okay.
What is the definition of profane? I don't know. Can somebody help me?
No, I was
Well,
looking.
it's the opposite, I do think, and Lynn mentioned this before, of sacred.
Mhm.
We
Okay.
always say the sacred and the profane, so the holy and the not holy, which goes to Judy saying that the author says that how can she be holy? She's a woman.
No.
Thank you.
All right. I have Elaine and then Lynn.
Okay, one of the things I think, and I'm not picking on, but we get this book, the story.
Can't hear her.
Real loud.
The story is in a shekel, is that how you say it?
Shekel.
or whatever.
Shtetl.
Shtetl.
The stories in the
And it's
shtetl.
not today. Women were definitely lower class citizens when this story was, and we have evolved. So we have to read the story as what it is. And people did go to pharmacies then, and they prescribed medicines
Yeah.
and, you know, herbs and things like that. And you look for help wherever you could get it, rather than, you
Right.
know, in your, people didn't maybe have time to look within themselves and be self. So you worked hard, you ate your dinner, you went to bed, and that was it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
you
there
think-
was a different lifestyle. That,
Yeah.
although there was a pharmacy, so
And
something.
if someone said something spiritually, oh, that you took it.
Yeah. Lynn.
Okay, I want to answer my dear friend Judy Feldman.
I'm here for you, Lynn.
Okay, Jude, I think you have to think of the narrative point of view here. This is satirical. He is satirizing their ancient belief about women. I don't think this is the author's view of women. I really don't. I think he is trying to show the ignorance by calling her profane, which I'm looking up right now, means to debase by a wrong, unworthy, or vulgar use, irreverence, contempt. She hardly shows that in the book. So he is picturing her, the author is respecting and holding up her as an example of someone who is sacred in her, truly sacred in the best sense of the word, in her reverence for spirituality, because she is totally the spiritual being. So I think we have to understand that he is, I think, beautifully satirized. I hate to say, I said this before, organized religion. I don't know what else to say. Prescriptive religion or whatever. Maybe somebody can help me, but
Hey, Judy. Judy.
He refers to her as a placebo human.
but the author isn't. The author isn't.
The author's writing this.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, but he's manipulating his narrative.
Yeah, I can't get past it. I'm sorry. Maybe,
Okay.
maybe, but I would rather, it's up.
The hot deal, the difference.
Okay.
Okay, Mary.
Okay, it's Sacred and Profane, written by Martin Buber. The sacred is sacred. It is where God is present and where it's spiritual or
Right.
whatever. And it's also, you know, whereas profane meant just everyday life. When you leave your house
Right.
and you touch, you know, you walk out the door, you're now into the profane. It's not evil, it's not bad, it's just everyday stuff. It's sort of what Elaine said, it's the work, it's the, you know, where your mind isn't on the spiritual, is the profane. So it's not, but it is interesting that we call her profane, which means she's everyday or whatever. But one of the lines that I thought was really important, Zayin came down to them.
What page?
411. Even in her anguish, she recognized the only sin had been her messianic arrogance, and that the atonement must be her silence. Women need to be silent. They don't need to be arrogant. Now, is that a put down of women? Is that a put down of, you know, we all know, I've met either it's priests or rabbis or whoever who are very arrogant, or doctors who are arrogant.
Oh.
Okay, so so arrogance was her sin, but that's also a put down. She had to be silent. She had to observe. She couldn't participate. She had to sit in the balcony. She couldn't be on. So I think that if you take, I don't know how to take him, because he's putting down women, or he's satirizing religion and the treatment of women. So and he doesn't make it clear, which means that I came away from this story feeling he didn't do his job as a writer. Because there should have been something to tie it up to say, okay, this is what I've been doing. You know, when Bill Maher does his satire thing, or Colbert, you know what it is. You know what his message is, you know where he's satirizing, what he really believes. So, but you don't know with this guy what the story is.
There was a book and it'll come to me who it's by, but satire is very hard because and Colbert said that when he was on the Colbert Report and he was being a satirical conservative, some conservatives thought, oh my God, he's fantastic. So to do satire right, you really have to I have a lot. Beverly Rose, do you have your hand up? No, okay. I'm just checking on you. Abby, then Lynn.
I was just all of a sudden focusing on the word profane, and maybe we're being too harsh with that. And when you said in passing, Vanessa, about Lahavdil, and I was thinking about Havdalah being the sacred and the normal, being Kodesh Lachol, the holiness and the everyday, as opposed to the profane.
Right. Although I think some people say the profane because, between Shabbat and weekday. And you say that at the end.
Profane weekday is normal. Weekday is every day. I don't think of it.
Right. Right. Lynn and then Merle.
Okay. I'm looking at profane again. There are two meanings. First meaning is secular.
Right. So that for Havdalah, that makes sense.
Secular. The second is irreverent.
Oh, irreverent.
Okay, so
yes,
you have to be, as a reader, you are compelled to decide which of those definitions the author is trying to project on you. And I think the profane is coming from Orthodox, is this old feeling of the Orthodox rabbi. And he evolves during the course of the story because he's saved. If he hadn't been saved, he would have been dead. But he is saved, and now he believes that she has, that she is sacred, that she has songs coming from her. She's sacred in a different way. So maybe the author is, he's definitely presenting two different belief systems here. And we have to decide, to me, this is just, I don't think this is every day. I think the community originally thought of her as profane. And until she did her magic on them, did they come around? So I think it's just all poking. Is very hard, very hard.
Merle, then Susan, then Judy.
Getting back to the desperation and loneliness in society, I worked in a church for years, teaching English as a second language. The rooms were in this church, and I saw things from their religious school. And one thing that impressed me was a piece of paper with a picture of Christ reaching out his hand, and this was for the children. And then the children would draw a picture of themselves holding Jesus's hand, walking with Jesus, never alone, always with Jesus. So they felt secure. Now, in our religion, we can't draw any images of God. God doesn't take a human form for us. So we can't draw ourselves holding God's hand as we walk through life. But what happened with her is that even though she appears to die at the end, the very last line of the story is, here was their savior who had shown them how to live. So it is a positive image of her at the end.
Right.
She was a woman and she had this word named Zayin. She had shown them how to live. So maybe that's what we're looking for in society. If we can't hold God's hand as we walk down the way everyone can in Christianity, at least there are people.
Some people might say that's a very Christological image.
Ending, that's what I thought too, but they do make her positive by the end of the story.
Right. Susan, then Judy.
Okay, so I have a profane feeling about her name.
Yeah.
If her name means penis, and in this book, his thoughts about women that come out in this book, which are kind of demeaning, where would we be without a man's penis in our lives? When you think about it, how can we give birth?
Right.
How can we have children?
Right.
I mean, Really?
Well, listen, now with
How
IVF,
can we have fun?
you really get the sperm from someone.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when you think about it,
Mhm.
why did he give her that name?
I don't know. What, so, all right, Judy, and then I'll have a closing.
I have a political point of view on this too.
Okay.
He goes out in the world and tells them he alone can do it,
Oh, not naming any names.
not naming any names. And they go around and they say things to people that make them feel better and happier and hopeful, even though there's nothing there
Or there's a lie there.
or there's a lie there.
Lots of lies.
That too affected me about this story.
Interesting. When I have a meeting, I have a lunch meeting with my colleagues, a bunch of educators, and when I tell them that I just discussed a story, Zayin the Profane, they're all gonna laugh. They are all gonna laugh because they all know that word. Now, it's 10:59. We meet again in 2 weeks. And the next story, which I just went over a little bit, is Dear Yassin. And it's a very for me, a disturbing part of Israeli history. It took place on April 9th, 1948, when around 130 fighters from the Irgun and the Lehi, which was the right wing of the Haganah, killed at least 107 Palestinian Arab villagers, including women and children. This is a very difficult time to read this story, but I think we need to go on. And it's
I understand that. I just learned this, that they not only killed, but they raped, which I didn't know until recently.
yeah.
Is there something I should know about the title meaning something else in Hebrew?
No, I don't think so. No. That's just the name of the village. I will tell you this, that do you remember when those 3 boys were kidnapped, the 3 Jewish boys, and then the Palestinians were killed and the 3 Jewish boys were killed? It happened, it's outside of Jerusalem. And I'll have more to bring you in 2 weeks. It's good to see everyone. Latka vodka this weekend, and Hanukkah starts. Get your Hanukkah and all your candles out and your tinfoil. So I guess everyone has dripless candles now. And if you need anything, you know where to see me.
Thank you.
Oh, and don't forget Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye.